All right, let's welcome back to Straight Fire, one of the foremost NFL voices out there. Gambling is his thing. Building models. His previews are spectacular and must read. Warren Sharp. Warren, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Best time of year to be talking ball, in my opinion, because we've got a little taste of the preseason. Two more games left to go for each of these teams, but we can start talking about preseason. We have a little bit better picture as to how these teams are going to perform. So it's a great time to be a football fan, and I'm certainly happy to have the book writing process in the rearview mirror and not have to worry about that right now, because that is an absolute nightmare to put together each year. But it's a lot of fun when it's over.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I see it as 586 pages. So Warren, basically, you don't get a summer, do you?
I don't know. And the thing is, I have very high standards for myself when I'm writing this each year because I know that a lot of important people read it, including people in front offices, including people in the analytics departments of various different teams. Some of them ask me for hard copies. Some of them just want a complimentary PDF. So like I'm supplying it to those teams. I every year put very high standards on myself to come up with insights that most other people aren't already discussing, or the real reason why I think these teams performed well or poorly last year and how I think they're going to do this year. So we start working on it in late February. And then this year I came out with it at the very end of June. So it's a lot of work, but it really helps me get set up for the season and has given me some success for like a futures betting perspective as well.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I gotta say, some of the stuff in here, the schedules and the drafts, like these aren't breakdowns that are everywhere. So I do want to start with a team. They're interesting, the Detroit Lions. So you have them as having the third hardest schedule in the league. It looks brutal, but there are elements of it that are super beneficial. And again, I think the larger discussion, on Fox, ESPN, everywhere, is like, oh, the Lions are going to regress. They lost their OC and DC, period. And that's where a lot of people stop. But your depth on their schedule and how, yeah, the schedule is tough for Detroit, but like the Bears, Bengals, Chiefs, Steelers, and Eagles are playing them on Monday night the week before. So that's a huge edge for the Lions. Do you actually think, is there a world where the Lions are a little underrated, Warren, coming into the season?
It really, to me, just depends on what we're going to get. We didn't get the chance to see it yet from John Morton with these starters. I'm just so fascinated, Jason, by how much play action they're going to incorporate into the season, because it really made a big difference for the passing attack. Like, we know that they lost a little bit on the offensive line, and that's going to impact the run game. It could impact the passing game as well. But the real key for me is just the strategy, the play calling. How are they going to execute? They're going to be aggressive on fourth down, which is going to give them an edge. We already know that. But how are they calling these plays? How are they sequencing these plays with John Morton? There's been a lot of negativity surrounding the Lions, obviously, most of the offseason. They were the darlings entering last year. I was on their over last year. A lot of people were, and they won 15 games, made us look like geniuses. But not very many people are willing to take stabs on their over this year or really be supportive of the Detroit Lions, even though they're still a very good team. We just know collectively from watching this happen to the Philadelphia Eagles, when you lose both coordinators on both sides of the ball, have to replace them, you're promoting some people either internally or from outside the building who aren't like big name guys like John Morton. I don't know how many teams were like, we got to get John Morton to call offense for us, right? So I just feel like that is going to be a big question mark. But for sure, you mentioned it on the schedule side of things. Like if you're looking at division bets for the NFC North, who's going to win that division, keep in mind that I look at a statistic called net games with rest edge. So it's, the Lions have 8, which is the most I've ever tracked in my database. The Lions play 8 games this year where they have more rest than their opponent. They only play 1 game week 4 against the Cleveland Browns where they have less rest than their opponent. So they're +7. They have 7 games with a rest edge. There's not a single other team in the entire North that has a single game with a rest edge net overall. The Green Bay Packers are at 0, Vikings -2, Bears at -3. So that is inevitably going to help the Detroit Lions. Of course, they play the 3rd toughest overall schedule. That's not going to be easy either.
It's interesting because a lot of people are giving the Packers love. Now, this was before the Jordan Love situation here. I think he's going to be fine, but, The injury narrative around him is getting interesting. The Packers seem to be getting a lot of Super Bowl love. Are you buying that, by the way?
I think the Packers are a really interesting team because I really liked what their defensive coordinator did with them last season in his first year in the building, Jeff Hafley. And I think they're talented on that side of the ball. And then you look at the offensive side of the ball, they had the number one highest drop rate of any team in the NFL last year in terms of the EPA that was lost, in terms of players with receiver error. It was the worst rate for any quarterback since 2021 was the receiver error that the Green Bay Packers receivers were delivering to Jordan Love. And then keep in mind that Jordan Love was injured for over half the season. Now, he was a warrior. He played through it. That impacted his statistics. But when he was healthy and playing within this offense, especially with Josh Jacobs out there running the football, this team was extremely good. But the fact of the matter is, Jordan Love played through a lot of injuries last year. So Jordan Love doesn't get the national recognition for being a very elite quarterback. And I don't know that I would consider him to be an elite quarterback, but I do think he possesses a lot of factors that are elevators for a football team. And that's going to help the Green Bay Packers win games. So it's a matter of, like, I think they're definitely making the playoffs. And at that point in time, it's just, what's the draw that they're going to get? How many games might they get at home? Do they have to be the team that goes to Philadelphia and play the Eagles on the road in the postseason? Like, there's a lot of factors that are going to play into that, but I certainly think they're worth being in the discussion of being the NFC representative for the Super Bowl.
Every year people love to pick these underdogs. We know the worst to first story happens every year in the NFL. There's like 2 or 3 or 4 new playoff teams. Maybe more than that if you take both conferences. I'm taking a flyer on like Denver winning the division, Atlanta winning the division. In reading your preview, it doesn't appear as if you agree with either of those.
Well, I actually really like both of those teams. The Atlanta Falcons, there's, in my opinion, a lot to like. And I work with a lot of guys behind the scenes, talk to them about some of the bets, work with some of the betting groups. And I pitched the Atlanta Falcons as a team that I thought has a higher ceiling than most other people. Obviously, their win total is only 7.5. I don't think that a lot of people realize when they just look at the Falcons and what they did last year, and this is in the preview, that I think Zach Robinson did a brilliant job managing that roster and that offense. He's coming into this thing thinking that Kirk Cousins might be okay. They don't know when Kirk Cousins is coming back from this Achilles injury. Kirk Cousins shows up. He can't do anything in the pocket. Remember that week 1 game against the Steelers? The dude is a statue, taking every snap from shotgun, not moving, getting rid of the ball. All of a sudden, Zach Robinson's like, crap, we have to pivot. We have to make a bunch of changes here to the offense that I wanted to utilize because now I'm dealing with Kirk Cousins. And yet they still performed fine last season, in my opinion. Obviously, Kirk Cousins threw away a lot of games late in the fourth quarter with a bunch of interceptions. You got Michael Penix Jr. That's one of the biggest questions on offense, just his downfield accuracy, his performance under pressure. Like, how great of a quarterback can he be? The O-line, though, is solid. The receiving core is solid. Obviously, we know the tight end question marks, but the running back core is solid. So I have confidence in all those other levels. The biggest pushback I got on the Falcons was their defense might be the worst defense in the NFL. Personnel-wise, their defense might be the worst defense in the NFL. If that ends up not being the defense is viewed as a very poor defense, and they're playing a brutal schedule. I show them playing the 3rd toughest increase in difficulty for any defense in terms of the offenses that they're going to play of any team in the NFL. They played the 25th easiest schedule last year. They're going to play the 7th toughest schedule this year. But if you go around and rank the front 7 specifically, my staff ranked the Atlanta Falcons front 7 and literally ranked them dead last in the NFL. So if you disagree with that, then that obviously boosts the Falcons and should give you even more confidence, because I think their offense is good. They've got a top 7 offensive line, a number 3 best running back core, top 11 receiving core. Quarterback is unknown. If Penix is fine and you think the defense isn't one of the worst in the NFL, absolutely the Falcons are worth a long shot flyer in terms of doing something in the postseason, but certainly winning that NFC South, which I think there's a couple of teams that could win that. I think that there's one that certainly will not, is the New Orleans Saints. But
yeah,
yeah.
Well, let me
Now,
ask. Let me drill down.
the Denver Broncos. I like the Denver Broncos a lot. I like the Broncos a lot. The tough part for them is, of course, their schedule. But we know that Bo Nix exceeded expectations last year. We know that they figured out a way to manage him really well. They had one of the most underrated offensive lines in the NFL last year. Javonte Williams made it look a lot worse than it really was. They've replaced him with RJ Harvey. I'm not getting the right vibes in camp, though, about RJ Harvey that I thought I was going to get. So that's still a question mark. But they did bring in, another running back there that is J.K. Dobbins, obviously, who should be able to help in the run game, even if Harvey takes a little while to come around. But I'm fine with their receiving core. Like, I think this is a really good team, and they might have the best defense in the entire NFL. So I like a lot about the Denver Broncos. And I'm certainly not selling them. I'm certainly not taking their under, but they've just gotten, propped up like the New England Patriots have, like where it's like, how much upside is there in these futures? Because there's already a lot of love for this team in the current marketplace.
Interesting. Let me go back to the Falcons real quick. So they bring on a new DC and Ulbricht, the guy from the Jets. And yeah. I thought they kind of had a decent offseason. I know people think they overpaid in the draft to trade up and get Pierce, but he's flashed in camp. You got Floyd, who's a new addition. I like Jalen Walker. Jesse Bates, one of the best safeties in the league. You got me scared with this defense, man. I was going to hammer the over. I have them potentially as like the number one seed in the NFC, given that schedule. Like, is there a world where maybe the Falcons win 12, Eagles pull back, and there's no 14, 15 win teams like last year?
Well, it's interesting. When you look at the top 6 easiest schedules this year in the NFL, 2 of them are from the NFC South, the Falcons and the Saints. Then you've got the 49ers, who are just getting riddled with injuries. And we know that the 49ers, they tend to always be good unless they've got injuries. And that's the only time when they've struggled. But they're already being bitten by the injury bug. And then you've got the Jags and the Bills and the Patriots, who are over there in the AFC. We don't have to worry about them for the purpose of this discussion. The thing that I did like about the Falcons was that they knew what their weakness was and addressed it in the draft, like you mentioned. They go defense pick 1, defense pick 2. They moved up. Defense pick 3 with the safety. Defense pick 4 with the safety. Like, all 4 of their first 4 draft picks were on the defensive side of the football, including 2 in the first round. They know what their weakness is. They've made moves to address it. The issue is, like, I think they can definitely battle in that division. The question is what happens outside of that division with some of the offenses they're going to play. But here's the positive. I was just looking at this. Literally, I was on a conference call right before we talked about the possibility of us moving on over 7.5 and the benefit of playing the LA Rams in week 17. The talk of the town, and this is out in your backyard, so you might know better about Matthew Stafford, but is that, it's still a little bit concerning that he's not out there practicing right now. But the fact that most of these people think he could start the season, but then how much time is he going to be there? When's he going to get knocked out? Well, if you don't play the Rams until week 17, like, you might not be getting Matthew Stafford at that point in the season. So that's a positive for you. And so that's one thing I think could help the Falcons a little bit from a scheduling perspective as well. So I don't mind the over 7.5 there, but I
mean, 7.5 feels so low. I'm looking. Well, they do have to face Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels early. We just don't know what's up with JJ McCarthy in Minnesota. I don't know. Where are you? We don't know.
We don't know. Yeah, we don't know about JJ McCarthy. We don't know about the Indianapolis Colts. Like, who's going to be that quarterback? Which is another team that the Atlanta Falcons are going to play outside of their division. Look, Minnesota, I love what they've done with the offensive line to help shore things up. And certainly they're going to go through an identity change with a younger quarterback in there. The thing that I like about what they're probably going to be doing with the young quarterback is they've got one of the best play callers and offensive minds in the NFL in terms of Kevin O'Connell. The way that he's going to try to make life easy is going to be very valuable. The key to them, though, is, if I'm not mistaken, I'm scrolling through my preview here. They jumped out to leads in games last year, unlike most teams in the NFL. And what that allowed that Brian Flores defense to do is really stay creative, pin your ears back, make life difficult on opposing quarterbacks. If you are not aggressive with JJ McCarthy early in the games, like you might have been a little bit more with Sam Darnold, and Sam Darnold threw a lot of some people don't like the terminology, but interceptable passes last year that did not get turned over, but they were turnover worthy. If you don't get those plays from JJ McCarthy, if he's not pushing the ball down the field, if you're not scoring points as easily early on, that's going to make life more difficult for this defense of the Minnesota Vikings, which is a very talented unit. And yeah, as I look at it, the Minnesota Vikings last year scored the number 2 most points in the second quarter of any team in the NFL. The second most points in the first quarter of any team in the NFL. They led at halftime by the 5th largest margin. That just makes life so much easier on your defense and keeps things creative for your play caller. If Kevin O'Connell isn't aggressive enough early in games, they're not going to be playing with leads as much. Then there's going to be more pressure on JJ McCarthy to throw the ball in known passing situations in the second half. And it's going to make life more difficult on the defense as well. So that's the biggest thing for me is just, I trust the coaching and I'm good with the personnel. How aggressive is he willing to get, and how successful are they going to be early in these games? Some of the game scripts that come into play here so that they can build these quick leads. And that's the biggest question that I'm not sure I have an answer to yet for the Vikings.
Regarding your gambling chatter with these groups, so we hit on the Falcons. Any action on first coach fired? I know Brian Dable is going to be popular, although some people are backing off now that what's his face, Dart looks good. But what about Mike McDaniel in Miami? Do you think there's a world where they run him mid-season? Because I mean, again, I don't want to read too much into a preseason disaster of a practice, but apparently they got boat raced in a scrimmage against someone, and it was like the worst scrimmage. Miami just looked ill prepared. McDaniel at the podium is starting to kind of grab and say weird stuff. What's the vibe you're hearing around the Dolphins?
Yeah, here's the thing. I honestly went back, Jason, after I saw them struggle at the goal line. And I was sharing some of this on social today. I saw them struggle at the goal line in the first preseason game, and they ran 3 times and got stuffed each time and turned the ball over. It's against the Chicago Bears. And so I went back and I started watching how they're running out of heavier personnel. And then I saw that they were the worst team in the NFL running the football in short yardage situations last year. In fact, they were stuffed the most frequently of any rushing attack since 2019 is what the Dolphins offense was doing last year. Even though they had A-Chain, who was like great the year before, this team was struggling a ton last year. And then I started looking into the personnel groupings that they were utilizing. And short story, because this could go on for 10 minutes, me just discussing this because I love talking about this type of thing. They use the number 1 highest rate of runs with a fullback out on the field in short yardage. And they're at like 43%. The league average is 6%. No other team, there's only one other team above 18%. But when they stick that fullback out on the field, they run at such a high rate in these short yardage situations. They're telegraphing to the defense, we're going to be running. You know what the defense is doing? On those runs, they play with 7+ man boxes 95% of the time.
Wow.
The Dolphins, as a result, cannot move them because their O-line isn't talented enough. It's the cheapest offensive line in the NFL. And it impacts their ability to gain first downs, which is why they get stuffed so much because their backs aren't big bruisers. But when they ran with the same offensive line, with the same running backs over the last 2 years, out of 11 personnel, 3 wide receivers, spreading the field a little bit more, the defense is playing with light boxes on only 31% of those downs, and they have more success running the football. They were the number 1 most efficient team running the football out of 3 wide receiver sets in short yardage. And this isn't something asinine like no teams do. In fact, the Rams, the Falcons, and the Bucks all run from short yardage with 3 wide receivers out on the field above 60% of the time, some above 80% of the time. So I think the Miami Dolphins need to tweak some things here. And this is just pure coaching, but it gets to the overall point that you're making is just like, do we actually still have confidence in Mike McDaniel to understand once it was so novel what he brought to the table when he first started there with Tua. And they have to get the ball out into his hands so quickly because the O-line is falling apart. Last year, they weren't pushing the ball down the field in the passing attack because I think Mike McDaniel was worried about Tua getting another concussion on his watch. And he didn't want to be responsible for having a guy who's playing behind a bad O-line. They already know that, and Tua's just holding the football. So it was all this underneath stuff to the tight ends and the running backs, and it's just not productive enough. So there's going to have to be, I'll tell you this, like there's been most seasons, Mike McDaniel comes in with like something new, like to start the year. We saw the short motion the one year. They're going to have to come out with something this year, because if they come with the similar offense that they brought last year, I agree. The offense is going to struggle, and everybody's going to probably blame it on Mike McDaniel. And so that's definitely a recipe for disaster, but it's hard for me to look. I think drafting the quarterback for the New York Giants does buy Brian Daboll time. I think drafting that quarterback does buy him time. I don't know when they're going to stick Dart in. I actually think that Russell Wilson is going to look much better in this offense for the Giants than any other quarterback that Brian Daboll has worked with in New York, other than, since he came to New York, since Buffalo, because Russell Wilson works a lot better throwing from spread personnel. He works a lot better throwing to wide receivers, and that's what the Giants use at high rates is 11 personnel, a lot of wide receiver targets. When he was in Pittsburgh and before that in Denver, which is the two stops since Seattle where he's looked terrible, those two teams use a lot of heavy personnel and throw a lot to tight ends and backs, and that's just not really where he has his strength. The biggest issue, though, is going to be the protection up front with that offensive line. He is horrible under pressure. He thinks he's the young guy that he once was in Seattle. He's not the young guy. Happens to all of us. He's terrible under pressure. He can't be scrambling around trying to evade defenders. He's just got to figure out a way to get rid of the football. That could drive Brian Daboll nuts. But let's face it, it's still not going to be worse than the quarterbacks Daboll has been working with over the last several years. So I think Daboll's got a little bit of a lifeline with the Jackson Dart draft pick. I could be wrong, but Mike McDaniel, something's got to change for Miami, and it's got to change early in the season.
I wouldn't be a real Jets fan if I didn't ask your thoughts on the Aaron Glenn hire, Justin Fields at quarterback. It just feels like a bit of a stopgap before they get Arch Manning or someone, who can actually be a franchise quarterback.
Well, I'll tell you, I took Justin Fields rushing yards over, which I definitely think is a good bet. It assumes his health, right?
But wait, you can bet his season total rushing yards?
Yes, you can. I took it at, let me try to figure it out here. Futures. I took it at, I don't know what it is right now.
I guess the risk there, Warren, is that he gets hurt.
625. Yeah, absolutely.
625.
625 yards. There was a quote, I think it was today, I saw on Twitter, where somebody asked a team that was practicing against the Jets, what do you feel about Justin Fields as a quarterback going up against him the last 2 days? And he said, I really can't tell you what I feel about him as a quarterback, because he spent most of the practice running around with the football, trying to evade the pass rush. Okay. And that's exactly what I sort of think is going to happen. And that's going to lead to a lot of these rushing attempts. Last year, we saw, how many times did you see Aaron Rodgers dropping back, just dumping the ball off to Breece Hall underneath, because he was trying to get rid of the ball quickly, because the pass rush wouldn't hold up longer if he's trying to take long dropbacks. And that's one of the things, self-preservation mode, that Aaron Rodgers has gone into at this latter stage of his career. He's trying to get rid of the ball super quickly. That is the biggest delta for any quarterback change in the NFL, is Justin Fields' time to throw versus Aaron Rodgers' time to throw. Aaron Rodgers is one of the fastest in the NFL. Justin Fields is one of the slowest in the NFL. He had the highest rate of pass attempts thrown after 3 seconds of any quarterback in the NFL last year. And it's been a bugaboo every place that he's been. In Chicago, he started in 2021, number 6 longest time to throw. The next year, number 3 longest time to throw. The next year, number 1 longest time to throw. And in Pittsburgh, number 4 longest time to throw. This is a feature, not a bug. It's going to be something that's going to come to New York. It's going to be very different than what Aaron Rodgers is doing behind that offensive line. As a result, I just think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Justin Fields in the pocket. It's going to force him to then scramble with the football and run with the football. And he's different than like a Baker Mayfield or some of these other types of quarterbacks that will run out of bounds after getting a first down. Like, I think Justin Fields is playing for his career. He's been given another lifeline here by the Jets. That's why he missed one practice with his toe injury. He's right back out there. He's taking this very seriously, as he should. I think he's going to be a gamer. I think it's one of his best attributes. I love the upside that comes from a running quarterback. I think he's going to be scrambling all over the field. I'm curious to see how that defense holds up, because they have better talent than what Detroit's defense had. And Aaron Glenn's got a unique style. I mean, the thing to remember about this defense in Detroit is that Detroit blitzed at one of the highest rates in the NFL. They had a great pressure rate, but could not get any sacks. For some reason, they were not registering any sacks at all. He called the defense and they were getting after quarterbacks, but couldn't sack them. If that regresses positively in New York for the Jets and they're getting after the quarterback and recording those sacks, those could change the game. I mean, sacks are absolute drive killers for opposing offenses. That could definitely make life a lot easier on Justin Fields. I just don't have a lot of confidence in his ability as a pocket passing quarterback to get the ball out on time and to raise the ceiling of this team. But I'll tell you, I still didn't see enough to make me want to fade the Jets and bet they're under. So I bet nothing on the New York Jets right now. I would probably lean to the under, but I like Justin Fields rushing yards over. And to that point, injury is obviously the number one concern if you're betting a player prop over. But in Justin Fields' case, he just needs this so badly for the rest of his career that I think he's not going to be the type of guy who's just going to sit out and give it a couple of extra weeks. He'll get out there as early as possible. And I think he goes over 625.
Interesting. So I didn't even realize in his second year in Chicago, he had 1,100 yards rushing and then 657 the following seasons. And you're right. The Jets model, Warren, probably could be, hey, let's do what they did in Pittsburgh. We got a really good defense. Let's get after the quarterback, keep it close, and not make mistakes. So, Justin, we don't want you throwing a ton. We want you handing off. By the way, what's the latest with Breece Hall? Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, are they vibing with Fields or not really? I know Wilson knows him from Ohio State.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson has said nothing but positive things about Justin Fields. The big issue with Breece Hall is just he feels disrespected because he doesn't get it. He doesn't have another contract. He's going into a free agent season after this, obviously, and they have two young guys that they brought in last year. Breece Hall got more playing time than them, but both of these guys now are coming along a little bit more. And so they're probably going to be incorporated more into this offense. And so the question is just how much work is there to go around if you aren't winning games? And you might need to have Justin Fields drop back to pass a little bit more because game script reasons, you're not going to have as many rushing attempts. I agree with you that they probably are going to come out intent on trying to run the football. The question is just how long throughout the course of a game can they do that if they are trailing? And so Breece Hall, he's just going to have to come out there and make the most of his opportunities. And the thing is, then leave it into the offensive coordinator and the play caller's hands and the head coach as to who then gets the reps and moves up the depth chart in the running back room in the pecking order there and getting some of those opportunities. Who comes out week 1, 2, 3 and plays the best. And so there's a lot of questions in the running back room because Braylon Allen is somebody who a lot of people are high on as well.
Yeah.
So I think they've got a good stable of backs, but one thing I know is that you saw a lot of receiving yards from Breece Hall, and they don't have Breece Hall lined for receiving yards yet. But if I could bet an under on Breece Hall season receiving yards, I probably would, if that is based at all on last year's numbers, because he's not just mobile quarterbacks like that actually raise the floor of the running back that they're working with from a rushing perspective because of all the read options and things that they can do on the ground. But they definitely lower the floor in terms of targeting those running backs out of the backfield. Aaron Rodgers throwing all left and right to Breece Hall. That's not happening this year. And so I would be looking to bet the under on Breece Hall receiving yards if they line that before the season starts.
Man, I don't know who does more homework than you. By the way, I love the positional spending. I mean, that was an absolutely great nugget. Miami has the cheapest O-line in the league. Jets are up there. I do know that. That's for sure. A lot of young guys. But Warren Sharp, obviously, go grab his football preview. It's tremendous. Great reading here with 2 weeks left. Warren, are you going to be entering any of those Vegas contests? Do you know?
I am probably going to focus a little bit on you can bet the regular season wins at the Westgate contest, where you can go through all 32 teams and bet the over or under on the season wins. And
Okay.
I don't know how many years they've been doing that contest, but that's definitely something that's right up my alley, having researched all of the teams. And it's something that you don't have to worry about during the course of the season. During the course of the season, most of the players, and I've been in those contests for several years. One year I finished 21st when they paid out the top 20. And there's definitely some opportunity. It's a lot of work if you're trying to finish high, but a lot of variance goes
Luck.
into the people
Yes.
that end up winning that. I like this season win contest. I'm starting to dig into that a little bit more.
What's the
Probably going
buy-in?
to
Do you know?
submit. I want to say it was like only like 400 or
Oh, that's not bad. Now,
$600. No.
it could. I wonder if if it's that cheap, I'm sure people will do multiple entrants, and you should humor me, and well, I should humor myself and just go enter and just pick 32 unders as one entry, and then 32 overs as the next entry, just for fun, just to see what happens.
This
Not
is
that I want to blow
that's
500 bucks.
Yeah, no, I actually I could be wrong. It might only be $200 to enter, but like
Mm.
there weren't that many people that entered it last year. I want to say the number was around 200 entrants. So you actually have a decent shot at winning it because there's not a massive lot of people who know about this contest. And I think it's a lot of fun, and you don't have to worry about it once the season starts in terms of trying to come up with
Every week,
additional
yeah.
selections.
Oh man, that's good.
I do want to throw out there, my 2025 football preview. If you go to Sharp Dot Football, I'm giving that away for you guys for $1 if you enter the code FIRE, obviously in
For
your
$1.
podcast name, for $1, because it's getting close to the start of the season, and it is 586 pages. There's 32 team chapters, but somebody's not going to be able to sit here and digest it nearly as well at this point in time as they would have if they bought it in July 1st. So it's only $1. I can tell you it's the best dollar that you'll spend on football
Oh,
analysis to help you get ready for the season. So use the coupon code FIRE. And you can
awesome.
get it for
Thanks a
$1.
lot, Warren. That's great stuff, man. $1. Yeah, no, I'm digging into it. And I like to take a week off late in August. I'm taking one soon. I'll be going to Vegas, obviously, placing some bets, and this is invaluable, man. Thanks a lot.
Hey, you got it. Thanks for having me, Jason.